So there you are, watching the latest live event, rest in pieces E3. The countless trailers and game reveals coming and going one by one, until finally, it's the one you've been waiting for. The flashing lights, the epic music, the crowd cheering, the hit of dopamine forcing you into a large grin as you watch. The swell of the big reveal to top off the teaser, and as the showcase ends and you try and process the incredible images you've just witnessed, then it hits you. This title is truly going to revolutionize gaming as we know it today. Except, is it? Is it really? Or is hype creating expectations that cannot possibly be met? I'm sure almost all of us have been there, being dazzled by the fact you finally got to see some cinematics or even some gameplay from your most wanted title in your wishlist. But before you even have the time to think about what you've just seen, the main websites already have articles up, behind the scenes development interviews, full of praise and adoration, claims of how much better this new title is going to be than anything we've seen before. But here is where I think it's a good idea to pause and actually think about what it is you've just seen. Is there really cause to hype up this new game as something groundbreaking? Or is it more accurately just going to be a shining example of concepts we already know and love? How many times after finally booting up our pre-order copy of the newest game do we realise, hey, this plays similarly to this other game? While exciting, we have to remember that these trailers are the products of businesses. Even the backgrounds have been gone through with a fine-tooth comb to tweak the smallest details. Why? Because promotional materials are designed from the ground up to make you want to throw your money at the company. Firstly, I want to be clear that I don't think at all that someone being excited by a new game is a bad thing. I think the opposite. If it brings you joy and excitement, that's great. Hell, the amount of time you've patiently waited, you deserve to finally play it when it comes out. I'm looking at you, Breath of the Wild 2 and Metroid Prime 4 fans. I know. All I'm saying is that it's important to bring into context what we actually take away from promotional material. For instance, there are two main types of trailers, the gameplay trailer and the cinematic trailer. The gameplay trailer is just that. It's a video recording of someone actually playing the game. You see a heads-up display, menus, health bars, etc. It's a representation of the product you will actually receive when you hand over your hard-earned cash. A cinematic trailer, on the other hand, should be viewed entirely differently. Right off the bat, as soon as you see a cinematic trailer, take everything you witness with a grain of salt. It is not direct footage of the game being played. It's an animation, or in some cases live action performance, that is created completely separately from the game itself. The animator, for example, can make characters do whatever they want, even if it's not possible to perform the same actions in-game. So it's not too big of a jump to understand why this could be an issue. For a very quick look at a basic cinematic trailer, oh look, what a coincidence. This is a cinematic teaser for the Knights of the Old Republic remake. We see Darth Revan in a pitch black, smoky area igniting his lightsaber. Looks amazing, right? Darth Revan is so detailed, down to the wrinkles in the fabric of his robe. You just know he's about to wreak some havoc. So, what does this tell us about the game? Not a thing. Except that Revan appears to be present, which you'd hope if you'd played the original. But I can see to many people, it might come across that this is Darth Revan from the game, which, as we can see, is just not the case. This is not gameplay. This Darth Revan that we see here is not the one present in the Knights of the Old Republic remake. We have seen no representation of the final product that we will eventually be able to buy with our own money. I've been through a lot of release cycles that have led, unfortunately, to underwhelming games versus what I had expected. And I think as a result of that, I've developed a healthy sense of skepticism when I view these trailers and promotional materials. But nowhere have I found this skepticism more important than when dealing with verbal descriptions of gameplay features and elements in developer interviews. Almost always, these verbal descriptions never match the element described as you're led to believe, which makes it very easy to expect much more than the developer ever intended to put into the game. Before Skyrim came out, I remember watching a developer video on the Xbox 360 dashboard of all things. It was showing some behind the scenes, the making of Skyrim. I wish I could show it, but I've searched the internet and cannot find the video for the life of me. If anyone knows the video I'm talking about, please link it in the comments below. I'm not crazy, I'm not the only one who remembers it. I found people discussing it in forums 10 years ago. Anyway, in this interview, one of the developers mentioned that snow would naturally pile up as it would in real life, dictated by wind or ground level. But as we know, there is nothing like that in Skyrim. When snow falls, it doesn't pile up anywhere. Obviously, I was aware back then that tracking each flake of snow with the wind and ground level was ridiculous, but I thought they'd done some sort of analysis on the world mesh and made the snow generate in predetermined patterns. But in reality, all that meant was that some things would turn a bit whiter in the snow. The problem is that the language used just built up expectations beyond reason. Just for a bit of fun, I thought I'd quickly read out a couple of lines from the description of a game from its website, and I want you to imagine how it looks, how it plays, what elements of the world you can interact with, and how you can do so. Are you ready? Okay, close your eyes and imagine. The world is randomly generated with distinct civilizations spanning centuries of detailed history, hundreds of towns, caves and regions with various wildlife. The combat model includes skills, material properties, aimed attacks, bleeding, nausea, various poison effects and much more. A dynamic weather model tracks wind, humidity and air masses to create clouds, rainstorms and blizzards. You can open your eyes now. I'd imagine most people have pictured some expansive 3D environment, a simulation or RPG game with a vast landscape that lets you explore varied biomes, endure different weather, enemy types and hazards. This is the actual game I was reading the description of, Dwarf Fortress, one of the most deep and complex games ever dared to be brought to life. For most people, this is not what they had imagined at all, because the language is designed to build up your expectations, to make it sound as grand and impressive as possible. These features are all present in the game, however, just the language builds up your expectations as high as they will go. The secret, though, is that it's easy to ground yourself. If you've ever played a game with a similar feature, you already know what to expect. A dynamic weather model? We've seen rain, snow and storms. Combat including skills, aimed attacks. We have all put points into a skill tree before. We've all targeted the limbs of a zombie with a machete. Towns, caves and various wildlife. Ever played a little game called Minecraft? These trailers and this style of hyperbolic language comes across in a particular way. When a company's trailer is shown, they want us to see the colours, hear the sound and hand over our cash before our brains wake up and realise what we're looking at. A prime example of this playing out, as far as I can tell, is Fallout 76. I should probably put some sort of trigger warning here. I don't think it was as bad as people made out. Now hold on. Don't click the cross on this tab just yet. I need to explain. I'm not about to make the case that Fallout 76 was an amazing game. All I'm saying is, if a prospective buyer were to put aside all of their expectations and then sincerely and genuinely look at the information available before launch, that person could infer the gameplay experience and what they were in for. Bethesda were very clear that they had removed, in my opinion, the soul of the Fallout games from that installment, the non-player characters. The main appeal of Fallout for me is a sort of morbid curiosity at what people of the world would be like after a nuclear apocalypse. And when I think back at the Fallout games I've played, all I remember are moments with other characters. Moira Brown and her scientific experiments, the tragic story of Craig Boone and his wife, Preston Garvey and his constant... Well, maybe I don't look back fondly at that one. But even the main storylines. The third game was based around finding your dad. The fourth game was based around finding your child. These stories were personal stories about interactions with characters. It doesn't get much more personal than tracking down the guy who shot you in the face twice and buried you in the desert. Before I conclude, I feel like it would be dishonest though not to mention the canvas bag scandal. Because for anyone who doesn't know, or anyone who's repressed the memory, The special edition pre-orders, costing nearly 200 Great British pounds, were late to ship in some cases, and on top of that, instead of the advertised rugged canvas bag, these most dedicated fans willing to pony up that kind of cash received a cheap nylon bag in its place, with no warning that the design spec had changed. Bethesda did eventually ship out actual canvas bags, but by then it was way too late. Also, there were a string of game-breaking bugs from the offset, including a bug that deleted the entire game from your hard drive during the beta, and that was a download that was over 50 gig, by the way. A selection of bugs that deleted your character entirely from the game, and some quest enemies that would never respawn, causing locked progression. And while I personally only ran into one game-breaking issue, which was patched within days, and these issues don't affect the core concept of the game itself and the way it was marketed, like I say, I just feel it would be a disservice to the truth not to mention it, because it was just... well, I can't use words that come to mind here. Getting back to the Fallout games and its characters, for the launch of Fallout 76, the game world still contained all the environmental storytelling that we were used to. And with Bethesda upfront about the fact that there were no NPCs, it was basically advertised as a feature. Every person you would meet along your journey was going to be another player. Somehow the general expectation still seemed to be that it would just be another Fallout with multiplayer this time. So maybe it just wasn't communicated clear enough by Bethesda. Maybe we were all too distracted by Country Roads playing in the trailers. But I can't help but think, even without all the bugs and controversy, the signs were there to be read by everyone that this was unlike the rest of the games in the series we so enjoy. The expectations of a world the same as we'd walked before were upheld in the face of contradicting evidence. The truth is, 76 was doomed from the start. In case anyone wasn't aware, Fallout 76 has made somewhat of a comeback, if that word can be used. There's been a lot of updates, including introducing NPCs to the world, though I still haven't returned since I launched my first nuke back in early 2019. This problem of overhyped expectations is one that we can work on as a community. We all know what to expect from a racing game. We all know what to expect from a shooter. There are only so many ways to control a vehicle. To the same degree, there are only so many ways to run and gun. With more and more examples of games heralded to be the next revolutionary experience in the genre that fade into obscurity shortly after a controversial release, we just need to take a breath, turn our brains back on, and think about what it is we're seeing and what it is we're being told. Only then will we be able to recognise when our brand new game is a remarkable 8 out of 10 and not the hopeless 11 that the overhyped commentary promised. So, what do you think? Do you see overhyping as such an issue? Am I just old and cranky? Or is there something I've missed entirely? Let me know, I will be reading the comments. If you made it to this point, I'll assume you enjoyed my forthright approach, and I'd be humbled if you would like and subscribe, as there's always plenty more to see through the lens of truth.